I'd like to talk about psychosis, some symptoms of psychosis that I have experienced while grieving. But before we do that, I would like to introduce myself. I am Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, then you're more than welcome. Thank you so much for coming. So, psychosis. First of all, let me explain a little bit about psychosis itself. Right? So psychosis is not a mental health condition. It is symptoms, okay, which I'll explain in a minute. Those symptoms are sometimes experienced in certain mental health conditions, like, for example, schizophrenia or postpartum puerperal psychosis, so things like that. But it's not, psychosis isn't a mental health condition in itself. All right? So just a little bit about that. Now, I will talk about my experiences, okay? And then we'll sort of make some sense of it. After losing my son 4 years ago, very sadly, in April 2021, and I think a lot of you would probably be able to sort of, it might resonate with you as well, when I say I saw my son everywhere, all the time. And I still do, all the time. I remember, so you think things like, for example, he's just going to walk through the door and say, oh, why are you crying? Why are you, what's going on? Here I am, But other than that, you see your loved one. You can see your loved one. I'm not saying that you do, but you can see your loved one everywhere and hear their voice. So what was I experiencing? I was experiencing things such as, okay, when someone would be, let's say we've had some guests and they're visiting the house and they're ready to leave. Okay, so just setting an example for you. We're all standing in the hallway, just saying our goodbyes, and when are we going to next get together, etc., etc. And my son would probably position himself on the stairs, which is running into the hallway, and sort of sit there, engaging in conversation from there. Right, that's something that he would do. And so each time I'd walk past the in the hallway, past the steps, I would visualize and see my son sitting there, just smiling and just engaging, smiling, looking around. And there was times when, still times when I would walk past his bedroom upstairs in the hallway and peer in and see him sitting in his chair at his desk. And as I'd sort of walk past, he would sort of turn around and wave, smiling and wave. And it happened again and again and again and again. I remember once actually mentioning it to my husband about the stairs one, about seeing him on the stairs. And as soon as I said it, it frightened him. He got frightened because I think he thought, is she okay? Is she experiencing psychosis? Is basically what it is. And if you don't know what psychosis is, then yeah, you're going to be frightened. You're going to think, well, you might have been thinking, well, what's happening to my wife? And is she losing her mind? Is really what he was thinking. And I saw the expression on his face, and I just sort of stopped and I said, oh, it's okay. I'm just, Anyway, let me go on then. So it's, you can imagine, while you're around the dining table, that that your loved one is there. You imagine while you're in your living room that your loved one is sitting on the sofa along with you, and just being a part of the family as they always were. All right, and that is quite normal, and it's something that we all experience, and a lot of experience as a part of grieving, and it's not nothing for us to be alarmed about or fearful about or frightened about. But if I now talk about the symptoms of psychosis, you'll sort of see where I'm trying to connect this. So symptoms of psychosis will be you might you might hallucinate. Okay, so you might see things, hear things, smell things, taste things, touch things that aren't actually there. All right. Now, so when I then talk about seeing things, so I'm seeing my son, I am seeing him, but the thing that the first symptom of psychosis is this, okay? And this sort of underpins all the symptoms and that I'm going to talk about going forward. And that is the inability to differentiate between what's real and what's not real. Okay? Is the inability to differentiate between what's real and what's not real. Okay? So it's the inability to reality test. So, for example, if I say to you, oh, look, there's a flying saucer outside and it's just out the window, and you might look at it and think, oh, yes, it looks like a flying saucer. But you won't actually believe that it is a flying saucer. Someone who's experiencing psychosis might actually take that as at face value and believe that, yes, it is a flying saucer outside, and that's it, end of. There's no discussion on that, or I don't need to look into it anymore. It's a flying saucer, right? So it's an inability to do that. Now, when I experience seeing my son, I do understand that, and I might be very upset when I do see him. And in the beginning, when I first lost him, and I would imagine him, I would see him quite clearly. And I could feel his presence. But I was aware that it's not actually real. Does that make sense? So it's having the ability to separate what's real and what's not real. All right. But that's not always the case. That's not always the case with everyone, with people who do, experience loss, and they see their loved one. They may actually believe that that person is there in front of them and actually has come back to see them. And that's really where we're sort of getting from what we're experiencing in grief to maybe developing into psychosis and experiences of psychosis. Okay, so and another thing that I actually do experience as well, and I'll share this with you, is smell. Now, I have one of my son's favorite scarves and some perfume that I relate to him. It was a perfume that he would use quite a lot. And I mean, he had, like lots of young men his age, age of 22, he had several bottles of perfume. But this particular one, for some reason, would have that effect on me that, he's nearby, he's here. So I have that scarf and the bottle of perfume, side by side in one of the drawers in his room. And every so often I get that scarf out and I just hold it to my nose and mouth and sort of, take that breath in, inhale, and I'd feel close to him. And, there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely quite a natural thing for a mother to do. And then when that scarf sits there for months on end, sometimes it loses its fragrance. So that's hence the bottle of perfume is there next to it, where I can spray it again and bring it back again. So yeah, that's there as well. But the thing is that if I could smell that perfume as I came into the room or somewhere else in the house, that it's sort of like a wave, sort of moved across the room, then that might be a little bit problematic. where I'm experiencing something that's out of my belief of what's real and what's not real. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, so those are my experiences of symptoms that you also have in psychosis. But again, when it comes to me, I felt that even though there was times when I was really, really distressed, and I would see him also wanting to hear his voice, so I would imagine what he sounds like, so I don't forget. And I mean, I'm never going to forget how he sounded and how he spoke, but sometimes you have that fear, and you need to remember something that he would say, and then how he would say it, so it keeps it alive in your memory. So I can hear his voice, I can see him, and I can hear his voice, and that's very much, symptoms of psychosis, right? But the thing is that I would still know and believe that I have the difference between what's real and what's not real, and I can differentiate between the two. I do know of people where it's become a problem. It's become something that they've gone on to developing. So it might be an imbalance in their brain, perhaps, and might be heightened levels of dopamine, and dopamine, can heighten if somebody is in high levels of stress or on certain medications. Certain medications can have a side effect of psychosis. So some people are on all sorts of medication for their symptoms of grief, which can then bring on psychosis as well. So there's all sorts of reasons why someone may develop psychosis as a result of experiencing grief. But it's not something that, and I just wanted to really bring this out in this video, because seeing someone and hearing someone that you have lost is something that we all usually experience. Am I right? And I'd like you to sort of comment about that, because that would be interesting to know. But I do believe that is the case, that we do experience, those symptoms. All right. Yeah. Again, if it comes to if it gets to the extent where it is intrusive, and you're having intrusive thoughts and visits, from our dear loved ones that we have lost, and it becomes it stops you from doing the things that you need to do. It stops you from functioning. It starts affecting your relationships. It's affecting your health in other ways, your physical health perhaps in other ways. Then we really do need to sort of think about, looking at getting some professional help for that. Again, that might be, going along to your GP and talking to, your GP about that, or it might be, certain counselling perhaps, or certain other therapies that are available, and looking into that and seeing what is available and finding something that maybe helps you. So yeah, it's really about being mindful about what is something that's quite normal that we see in grief and in symptoms of grief, and something that then might become a little bit more problematic. Right. So I hope this video was of help to you, and I hope it made some sense. So it's quite complicated when it comes to psychosis. I'll probably do, another video about it from a slightly different perspective, possibly. But I just wanted to make that aware. I just wanted to raise awareness around, things that happen when we have loss, and we do see things, hear things, smell things that are possibly not there, and those are symptoms of psychosis. So it's just to differentiate between, having those experiences and, where it's something quite normal, and, something that we can experience, as grievers, and something that might become a little bit more, of a problem, and may need a little bit more attention, so professional attention possibly. All right. So thank you. Do share, like, subscribe, do comment. I would, really like that. Again, I'm trying to build this platform, this community, and that's what this YouTube channel is all about, building a community. So please do subscribe, because without that, we just don't have any numbers to move forward with anything. So please do that. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Yeah, so bless your heart and soul. Thank you.